Astronaut Sunita Willams, veteran of 2 space missions and naval pilot, is an inspirational woman from which we can all learn from today. Today, I will be interviewing her about how she got to where she is, her opinions on the future of space travel, and her inspirations.
Hi, Holland. I'm happy to be here with you. So excited for the interview. So thanks for asking me.
Yes, I'm honored you were able to come. So we'll just be going through a series of questions that are about aeronautics, space travel, and studies of opinions on things. So the first question I'm going to ask is, what got you interested in space travel?
Yes, interesting question because, my story is not so straight coming here to work at NASA, for example. Of course, I was growing up and thinking, wow, that would be super cool to, go to the moon and fly into space. But I never really connected it and thought that it was applicable or available for me and where I came from. I grew up thinking my dad immigrated from India and is a doctor. And I was thinking to myself, I want to do something humanitarian, sort of like he's doing. But I also really loved animals because my mom loved animals, and I still do love animals a lot. And so I thought, combining those seemed easy to me. I can be a veterinarian. I could help out that way. And but honestly, I did not really get into the schools that I thought I had to go to when I graduated from high school to pursue that. And I was a little bit lost at 17, didn't know what I wanted to do. My brother recommended joining the military and going to the Naval Academy. And I was like, what are you talking about? So I applied, just on a whim, and I got in. And it was a way, at that point in time, I was looking for a way to afford going to college. And I was like, well, this could work. I'll see how this goes, And my brother chuckled. He's like, I'm not sure you're going to be a veterinarian. But anyway, I went there and I found that I really enjoyed it just because of the teamwork, the ability to be a follower and then and grow into being a leader. And I really loved it. And when we graduate, we pick what we're going to do. And I wanted to be a Navy diver because I was a swimmer growing up, and I didn't get that billet. It was already taken. So Top Gun had come out and I thought, I'll fly. That seems fun. I wanted to be a jet pilot, and I became a helicopter pilot. But what was really cool about that was I got interested in how this thing works. Airplanes are fairly basic in comparison, and the helicopter was like, wow, this is cool. I want to know. So I applied to test pilot school, and that is the first time that I actually came down here to Johnson Space Center and saw what astronauts really, really do and how they train to fly in space. And I thought, you know what? I have some of the same characteristics or have had some of the similar experiences. So really, at that point in time, I was thinking the only one who's telling me no is me, because I haven't thought about it or thought even to put an application in. So then I did some research and found out what they did and what I needed to do to potentially join in the Corps and really then contribute in a big way to something big.
That's amazing. My next question is a little bit more abstract. It's, what do you think of commercial space travel, and what do you think the future industry of space will do regarding commercial space travel?
Yeah, so it's interesting, Holland. I'm right in the middle of it because the job for the last 5 years is really working with the commercial crew program. So commercial companies making spacecraft that will take people to the International Space Station, and it has bigger implications than that. Once we get commercial companies making spacecraft, well, then they can do what they want to do with those spacecraft and take people to space, not necessarily to the International Space Station, but wherever, and that is pretty exciting to me. To me, it seems like on the edge when we started having commercial airliners, right? People all of a sudden, people from all over and every walk of life it's starting to be accessible for them to travel with airplanes. And that's maybe not necessarily travel immediately with spacecraft, but at least taking going in a spacecraft and taking what I call a lap around the Earth and looking at it from that perspective. So that's really cool, and it will make us a little bit more aware of our impact to our planet, because you really have a different perspective when you're up there looking down on everybody down here. So I think it's very impactful to go to space, and if we could open that up for more and more people as an opportunity, I think we'll have been changing hearts and minds to think about our existence on this planet a little bit differently.
That's a very good answer. So you kind of talked about how going in space and seeing the Earth from such a perspective has changed what you think of the Earth. And my next question actually kind of pairs with that. It's how's your perspective of the Earth changed since you have studied other planets and left the Earth itself?
Absolutely, absolutely, without a doubt. Of course, I feel like I could sit here and maybe think about that and have that idea of like, yeah, we should preserve the environment, of course, and we should take care of forests, like rainforests. We should take care of the animals in the ocean. But then when you actually have the ability to see it, I mean, I think there's really forward thinkers who think about that stuff and don't necessarily need to see it with their own two eyes. But for us common people, when you see it with your own two eyes, then it's very, very impactful. Like when you see algae blooms in the ocean, or when you see from one year to the next, or from one season to the next, glaciers shrinking, for example, or you see huge fires in South America in the rainforest. It really makes you wonder, like, this is our one place that we live, all together right here. And we're doing things on a micro level, not a macro level, that are affecting the macro level of our Earth. And we should really be conscientious and think about how our impact is and what we're doing. So yeah, absolutely changed my perspective. And maybe that sounds a little negative. I don't want to leave it like that. It also reminded me when I was looking down at Earth, and it sounds like very, like people have said this all the time, there's no borders, but there really are no borders except for, oceans and mountains and things like that. We really are one species that live on this planet, human beings, along with all the other animals and plants that are on this planet. And it's funny that we're not more alike. It's funny that we don't really appreciate each other a little bit more. And I think that's really a perspective that I gained, where I love to learn about different cultures and people from different places, because I want to go visit those. I've seen it from space, like, wow, I want to go see what it's like over there. And and everybody has a different set of problems. They look at things a little differently, and it's only making us better when we stop and listen and understand what other people are thinking and what their hopes and dreams and desires are, which I think are always the same. Really, people just want to be happy. They want to be comfortable. They want to be able to find their partner in life and live a good life. And we just sort of don't always appreciate it when we're down here in the hustle bustle of Earth.
Yeah, I think that's very inspiring. I imagine seeing the Earth from such a perspective really makes you think of this as home and not a place so torn apart by different beliefs and religions and cultures and stuff.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. We're all together.
Yeah. So I have kind of a question that goes with that one. Have you grown to appreciate the world and its uniqueness for what it is? Or do you think the intrigue of the world pales in comparison to the vast other planets and stars and stuff like that?
Well, as far as we have space travel. This is our home. So this is pretty much the golden nugget that we have right here, right? So it's pretty incredible. But really, when you are from the perspective of living on the space station and looking out the cupola window, and you really see the vastness of space, you're like, wow, we are such a tiny little teeny thing. Again, it sounds a little trivial to say that because it's probably been said a number of times, but the vacuum of space is humongous, and you really get the perspective of here on Earth. We are surrounded by a wonderful atmosphere that protects us, but it also clouds our vision to really looking out at the universe and seeing all those stars and all the planets. And when you're in space above our atmosphere, you can see clearly out into the universe. You have that 3D feeling as it's dark, but it's also there's so many stars. I mean, just millions. And the one bad thing about it is it was hard for me to pick out constellations, because there are so many stars out there that it all sort of blends in, versus here on Earth, some of the atmosphere hides some of those stars. So that's the only downside, but it really is one of those things you just want to look out there and it's like, wow. And it also makes me want to think or feel like for example, Mars is reddish in color. And I just wonder if we start going toward Mars, if it will start, looking not just like a star, but more and more like a planet, which would be super duper cool. And as we're doing that, if our planet here will look smaller and smaller and smaller, like a blue star. It's a cool thing to think about when you're in that environment.
Sunny envisions for us how the Earth would look on Mars and how the stars look in space. She goes farther to tell us places on the Earth where we can see the stars like you can in space.
There's some places, if you find a really dark place and some place where there's not a light pollution or there's not a lot of pollution, you get some really good snippets of it. Or if you are lucky enough to fly in an airplane that flies pretty high, you get a little bit of a snippet of it, but it's spectacular.
My next question is kind of on the same track of what we were talking about. So you were in space for 322 days almost.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a lot of time kind of alone to yourself. So has your mindset regarding society and relationships with others changed at all? Or have you grown to be more fond of company or prefer solitude now that you've experienced that?
Wow. I think that answer changes over time. Like when I first came back, it was a little shocking to see a lot of people. I mean, it took my breath away a little bit, like, whoa, there's a lot of people here. Like I haven't seen a lot of people in a long time, but you get used to it again, like just normal. Like I'm a little bit shy when I have to stand in front of a group of people. I've always been that way, but at the same time, I don't mind it when I'm talking about something that I know and I love and I'm passionate about, like space travel. So it's okay. So that it all sort of comes back to, I think, your general personality. I'm also outgoing, so I love being around people for most of the time, but I also do need my solitude. I think the same thing goes on the space station because you were up there with 5 or 6 other people, and maybe they're the same people. Sometimes it's like too much people, even though it's only 5 or 6, and you need a little bit of time by yourself to just sort of recage, recalibrate, and get some rest and relaxation. And other times you really crave having a conversation depending on the situation. So I don't think it's totally changed my general personality, but it's reminded me, even actually before I went to space, about how important it is to stay in contact with friends and family. When I went my first time to space, I was I found myself unconsciously, but consciously, to a point, really wanting to see everybody and visit everybody. And if not, have a phone conversation and just say, hey, how are you? Are you doing okay? And I might not see you for a little while. So I just wanted to say hi, before I left. So I think that's a bigger impression that it leaves me. If I have 10 minutes in the morning, I want to call my mom and say hi and see how she is.
Yeah, I mean, that's very wise, I guess. Yeah, going up in space wasn't.
Yeah, and I think COVID probably did that a lot for a lot of people here on Earth when they, it's made you stop and think about what's really important. And maybe you can't travel to see people, sort of like the International Space Station, but it reminds you to maybe I should take the time and I really should just say hi.
Yeah. So this question's a little bit different than the others. It's more talking about yourself. What piece of advice would you give your younger self who is training to be an astronaut? And farther on that, how do you think young people can achieve their dreams? And what was your biggest challenge in overcoming your own dreams?
Yeah, great question. If I was seeing myself as a young kid, I'd be, don't worry about things so much. First and foremost, seriously, your life as you're growing up, it's your time to experiment, explore, try to figure out what makes you tick, what you really love. Don't really be worried about all the time what other people think if you love reading, if you're a geek, it's, that's okay. That's fine. I think I would think about not worrying as much about what other people thought of me. Not that I did that so much, but I know it weighed on my shoulders, and I'm sure it weighs on kids in junior high and high school a little bit. And, find your passions, find your dreams, and things that you really love, and you'll do them well. But that doesn't mean don't try things. Try a bunch of things, and it's okay if you're not good at it, right? I thought I really wanted to be a veterinarian, but all in all, I wasn't that great in chemistry, and I wasn't that great in biology. I really loved engineering, physics, and math. if I look back at myself in high school, but I was sort of forcing myself down a path that I thought I wanted to go when I wasn't really I didn't have a mind open to explore, to look at other options out there. I didn't really know what engineering was, and I actually really love it. I love learning how things work and finding out how things work. That's what makes me tick. But I didn't know that. I didn't put all that together. So people might have a preconceived notion of what they should be, what other people think about them. But I think really to be successful, you need to find your passion. Find your passion and go for it from there.
Sunny talks about finding our true passions to explore what we should really do. She then talks about how this relates to her struggles.
Oh, that's very wise. I mean, I know personally, I a lot try to be like very smart or seem very smart. And seeing you, I know you got your bachelor's degree, I believe, in physical science. And I was like, I'm going to follow the same path as you because I wanted to go to the military. I wanted to do all these things. But just knowing that you too kind of struggled with what you really wanted to do makes everything seem a little less intimidating.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And to be honest with you, even in college, I was a little distracted because I was a swimmer and a runner, and I did some sailing on the side and some biking on the side. And I think I didn't focus myself as well as I should have in academics. And I struggled a little bit in college. And then I went and flew, and I went to test pilot school, like I mentioned. And in test pilot school, everything clicked. I was like, boom, now I understand why I had to learn all that stuff, because I didn't really have a thing in my mind how I was applying like differential equations. But once I went to test pilot school, it really, I was applying it to how we design helicopters and airplanes and how they actually work. I was like, wow, now I get it. And it made me able to get my master's a lot easier. I was like, okay, I get it. I like it. I understand how this contributes. This class will contribute, or this subject matter will contribute to understanding a little bit more about how airplanes and helicopters work, for example. So it took me a while. So don't worry. That's the other, like I mentioned in the very beginning of like what I would say to myself is, don't worry, even if you're, in high school, you don't know what you want to do. Even if you're in college, you don't know what you want to do. But try and in the meantime, try and find that path.
This is going on the same topic again. If you had to do it all over again, would you do anything differently?
Oh gosh, wow. Probably not. All the things that all the little trials and tribulations that I talked about in the very beginning, which seemed like they were, speed bumps or things to overcome, I learned something from them. So I wouldn't want that experience to be taken away. So I also hope and expect you and your fellow students will have a little hiccups every now and then, because it forces you to learn a little bit more. Don't get down about that. The only other thing that I think I would also want to change, potentially not even change, but I would want to tell myself is there's always time to learn. Don't think that one thing that you learn in college or one major is that's it. I still, in the back of my mind, go, you know what, I could go work at a vet clinic after I finish this career. There's still time. I could learn another language. There's always time to keep learning.
Sunny helps us understand that no matter where we are in life, we shouldn't rush it because we always have time. I then asked her what attribute is most important in becoming an astronaut, and this was her answer.
I think being positive is definitely a huge attribute, because there's times things happen, but not necessarily always on the timeline that you think you want them to happen, right? We've been trying to go back to the moon for quite some time. We're finally getting a little momentum in the Artemis program, which is super exciting, and we're gonna get there. But in the meantime, there's so much we're learning, and we're getting better and better and smarter. We're getting better with spacewalking. We're getting better with environmental control systems. We're getting better with navigation systems, with a technology, of course, with propulsion systems to help us do this. So there's things along the way that we're learning as we're getting better and better. So I think some attributes is just being a little bit resilient to that, like not wanting to have that answer right now, and really enjoying the process of learning along the way, honestly.
Wow. I love how easygoing you are. It just seems aeronautics and astronomy is so set in stone, and this place is this and you can't mess it up. But with you, it just seems so you'll go on the right path no matter what happens. Just
You
trust
will.
the process and
Trust yourself. Right. And you know, another thing that I more so when I was a little younger, like when I was like in fifth grade, I think it was, or something like sixth grade, when you're learning about explorers, what used to bum me out totally was like, oh, everything is explored, everything is understood. You know, I really thought like everything's already invented, you know, all these guys, they already did it, you know, and so bummed out because I was like, I would love to be an explorer. I love to be an inventor. Well, there's so much more to explore and invent that your imagination can't even fathom it. So I would also say to people who are looking at life for a positive way, is like, there's so much more you can do. I mean, it's this, you know, technology in the last, 30 decades, with computers has just changed the way people thought from 50 years ago. It's ridiculous. So it's pretty cool. What's the next invention? I can't wait to see what really is going to be the next, page turner. It's going to be great.
I asked Sunny if her perspective of the Earth has changed since the 4 spacewalks she did during the ISS missions. This is her answer.
Yeah, actually, sometimes I can't even really believe I did it. But, it's pretty interesting. I love spacesuits. Spacesuits are their own little spacecraft, and there's just a lot that goes into it. But it really allows you to be one who's out there in the universe, right? And so we're very safety conscious here, or not necessarily risk adverse, but risk. Really try to understand as many risks as possible. So I think when we're doing spacewalks and things like that, there's obviously, just like riding on a rocket, there's also always risks involved, but it's really good to understand systems. So for me, it really made me try to be super sharp on understanding that system. I'm relying on that suit. That suit's relying on me. My partner out there is relying on me and that suit to be able to rescue them if anything went wrong. So it sort of super focused me on understanding and knowing the systems that you're working with. So that's the biggest thing. And then secondly, just the joy of being out in space with that visor right there. It really makes you feel pretty minimized in your place in this universe.
Yeah, that must be crazy. Who has inspired you most? I know you mentioned your father being a veterinarian kind of put in place that love for science and stuff, but is there someone else?
Yeah, I think both my mom and my dad. My dad was really dedicated physician, and my mom really supported him and made sure that me, my brother and sister, understood and were appreciative of different cultures. My dad immigrated from India, and my mother was Slovenian descent. So pretty big differences in their backgrounds and where they came from, their religions, obviously their ethnicity, and the food we ate was crazy and dynamic. But I think so with all of that, both my parents have really showed me to understand and appreciate people from all over the world. And I think that's the biggest gift that anybody could have, really. And good food, of course.
Of course. Those both are great gifts.
Yeah.
Are there any last thoughts you have, or anything you'd like to put out to my 9th grade class in my school?
Yeah, I think one of the coolest things about space travel, and it's not the only thing, because I know it's not for everybody. It's hard for me to believe, actually, but I know people have reminded me. But I think one of the coolest things about it and the whole space business, it's unifying for people throughout the world. We have our first 2 United Arab Emirates astronauts who are here working with us and training with us. We have our Russian cosmonaut friends who, I was in the military. When I was in the military, those were not our friends, and the Russians. And now we are working hand in hand. And we have, of course, Canadians, Europeans, and Japanese astronauts too. And not only astronauts, the people that I work with, of course, but then there's thousands of other people who support that infrastructure of space travel and space exploration. And as humans, I think it really unites us. And it's one of the few things throughout the world that people understand as one of those things that we should come together. I mean, it's the right thing if we come together to leave our little planet of Earth and go on exploring. So it just reminds me this type of work is really the type of work that we really should be concentrating and working on because it makes us work together.
Oh, that's very, I know I keep saying this, but it's all very inspirational. Your outlook on life and just science and community as a whole is very inspiring.
Oh, thank you, Holland. It's been fun talking to you. And, you guys, ninth grade, you have so many cool things in front of you. I'm just totally excited for you, and I know this has been a difficult year for everybody with COVID, but hopefully everyone dug deep a little bit and maybe learned something new that they never thought they would learn because they had to, because you had to do something a little bit different and, and appreciate each other, yourself, your own self and each other, and get excited about the future because it's limitless. Your imagination, like I said, probably can't even understand what's out there for you. And I hope to see one of you and your classmates on Mars one day.
I hope so too.
Yeah,
that's the dream.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you. It has been awesome. I've learned a lot from you. So thank you.
Cool. Yeah, my pleasure. And I hope we get to meet sometime in person.
Me too. That would be spectacular.
Yeah, I'll come visit the Willams family up my in-laws up there, and we'll have to get together sometime.
Come during summer. It's too cold in winter.
I know. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you, Holland.
Sony told us about how she became an astronaut, her inspirations that influenced her, and her view on world politics from space. From her, we can have a different outlook on the Earth. Thank you for watching, and thank you to Sunny for